This is not regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. We bounced it from last week. There are agendas available in the file pockets near the entrance or on the City of Waterville's website. All items appearing in the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these items are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to up to 3 minutes. Finally, the councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so under the public comment section of the agenda. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, disclosure of conflict of interest. Seeing none, we have an audit presentation and draft financial report.
Yes, sir. Let me promote Eric Netto. One moment, please. Hello, Mr. Netto. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You have the floor, sir. We can see you and hear you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Netto. I'm a partner with Nichols Michaud Netto. We are the auditor for the City of Waterville, and I'm here this evening to run through a quick presentation on the fiscal year 22 audit engagement. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Patty, looks like I'm not able to do so.
One moment. Okay, try now.
Perfect. You see that okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Okay, really quickly here. So as far as the responsibility for the financial statements rests with management, and our responsibility as the city's auditor is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, and those standards provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And we did issue an unmodified opinion on the 2022 financial statements. That is a clean opinion for the city. This next slide kind of outlines briefly the presentation of the financial statements for the city. There's really two main components of your financials. You have the government-wide financial statements, which are prepared effectively on a full accrual basis. The city reports capital assets, long-term debt, net pension liability, and various other accruals in the government-wide financial statements. In your audited financials, those are on page 10 and 11. The city also presents, and we report on, fund financial statements. This would be your general fund, capital projects, and other special revenue funds. Those financial statements are reported more on a current financial resources or a modified accrual basis. So for example, at the government-wide level, where we report long-term debt, so the full outstanding balance of the various bonds and other leases that the city has outstanding, within the fund financial statements, we do not report those liabilities. Rather, you expense the payments on those. So that's one of the differences between those two sets of financial statements. The fund financial statements are reported on pages 12 and 13 of your audited statements. And we also provide a reconciliation within the financials showing reconciling the change in your fund balance on the government-wide level versus the fund financial statement level. Okay, these next few slides are going to get into some trend analysis on some of the key areas for the city. This slide shows your taxes receivable over the past 7 years. Property taxes receivable were approximately just over $1 million at the end of fiscal year 22. That was a decrease of about 43,000 from fiscal year 21. And that is below average over the past 5 years, which is your average outstanding taxes receivable has been about 1.1 million. So, as you can see, there's been some fluctuation, some of it's timing, some of it's changes in your property tax rates. But overall, as you'll see on the next slide, the city's property tax collection rate has been very strong over the past 7 years. In fiscal year 22, you were over 95.5% collection rate in your property taxes. That was fairly consistent compared to fiscal year 21, slightly down from fiscal year 20. But overall, on average over the past 5 years, the city has been over 95% collection rate on its property taxes, which is excellent. As I'm sure most of you are aware, we haven't seen a lot of fluctuation in the mill rate for the city over the past, definitely over the past 4 years, which I think is a testament, as we'll see a little bit later on when we start looking at fund balance and budget to actual results. You've been able to control the mill rate very well. I know the mill rate that was approved for the 2022-2023 budget, which is the next year under audit, did go up slightly from the 2021-2022 rate of 25.5. The fiscal year 23 rate is 25.85. But overall, the mill rate has stayed fairly consistent over the past 5 years. Long-term debt levels, we have seen an increase over the past 3 years. Again, in fiscal year 22, the city did issue new bond funding of about 4.9 million, almost 5 million. That's what's causing the majority of this increase here. The city is carrying about $25.35 million of long-term debt at the end of fiscal year 22. And again, you added about 5 million of new debt, and you made about 2.5 million of bond principal payments in fiscal year 22. These next few slides are going to get into talking a little bit about the general fund balance. As you can see, since 2019, there's been a fairly steady increase in the general fund balance for the city. At the end of fiscal year 22, your fund balance, your total fund balance, and this is the city and school combined, was about 11.5 million. That was an increase of about 1.7 million from fiscal year 21. Okay, this next slide is, I know it's an important metric, certainly for the finance department, and certainly considered with management as part of their budgeting process. Your unassigned fund balance. This slide reports the unassigned fund balance for the city. And again, positive trend starting in fiscal year 18, 19, 20, 21. increases here, which means that you've been adding to your unassigned fund balance and for the general fund for the city. Slight decrease in fiscal year 22. Most of that is tied to the fact that for your 22-23 budget period, the city did utilize a higher amount of its unassigned fund balance as part of its budgeting process. So that's why you're seeing a decrease here. But overall, the unassigned fund balance for the city at the end of fiscal year 22 was about 7.6 million. And similarly, we also report within your financial statements as a separate line item within your fund balance. We show the school fund balance as well. This slide represents the total fund balance in the general fund for the school, which was about 1.65 million at the end of fiscal year 22. Again, that was an increase of about 353,000 over fiscal year 21. And similar to the city, the school has seen a steady increase in its fund balance in the general fund over the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, the city has a fund balance policy calculation. The fund balance policy for the city is 12%. And we do disclose this in the MD&A and the financial statements. So basically the city's policy is to maintain an unassigned fund balance of at least 12%. And that is calculated by taking the combined unassigned fund balance for the city and school and dividing it by the applicable fiscal year general fund expenditures. And you can see, other than fiscal year 17, where the city fell slightly below that fund balance policy, every year that we're presenting here, the last 7 years, you've been above that policy. And in fiscal year 21, you were over 20%. And in fiscal year 22, you're just over 19%. So you're well over the fund balance policy calculation for those 2 years. This next slide, I think, is a very interesting slide, a very important slide. And what we're showing here is, as I mentioned earlier, where the city for 2022-2023 budget period, the city increased its utilization of, or the budgeted unassigned fund balance to use in its budgeting process. So each year, the city does that. And we report a budget actual within the financial statements. So the blue column in this slide represents what was budgeted to use for fund balance in your budget, in your approved budget. If you see a red column here, that means you actually did utilize some of that budgeted unassigned fund balance during the year. If there's no red column, that means that you didn't utilize any of your budgeted fund balance, which is a very positive thing for the city, right? So in fiscal year 22, the city had an overall, as I mentioned earlier when we're looking at your changes in fund balance, the city had an overall positive change in fund balance of approximately 1.6 million. And you had budgeted to use about 750,000 of fund balance, right? So you budgeted to use 750, you didn't use any of it, and in fact, you added to your overall fund balance. So in effect, you had a positive budget to actual result of about 2.4 million in fiscal year 22. So the last 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, that fiscal year 17 was the last time you actually utilized any of your budgeted fund balance. Okay, so that's very, very positive for the city. It means that fund balance stays in your unassigned and you can utilize it for future budgeting periods. All right. Last slide here, and then I'll wrap things up. So some required communications for the council. I always like to mention that, we had no difficulties in dealing with city and school management completing the audit. This year, there's been a little bit of turnover at the city's finance department. I want to say that Christina and her team did an outstanding job getting things ready for us, answering questions, providing really good backup documentation and support. So I wanted to extend my thanks to them. I look forward to, continuing to work with them through subsequent audits. There were no disagreements between us and management regarding any financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matters. I mean, we discuss, municipal auditing and accounting can be complicated, and there's a lot of things to get through. So we discuss a lot of different things throughout the engagement, but I think all of those conversations and consulting type arrangements that we have kind of occurred within the normal course of the audit process. Management staff of the city and school did a great job during the audit engagement. Again, very responsive to our requests. I want to extend my thanks as well to Paula Pooler and her team at the school department. We do a separate audit for the school and issue a separate report, which is available upon request, I'm sure. And I want to extend my thanks to them. Recommendations, we typically in an audit engagement, we will make certain recommendations to management regarding internal control recommendations, financial reporting, year-end close procedures, those types of things. None of the recommendations rise to a level of significance. They're more just opportunities for the finance staff to improve existing procedures and help improve some year-end operating efficiencies as well. So so that concludes my presentation. Fairly quick. We issued the financials in March, so we've been done for a little while. Glad I had a chance to get on the call tonight to run through a quick presentation, kind of put a bow on the fiscal year 22 engagement.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on. City manager report? No? Okay. Council committees. Councilor Frankie.
Well, I have several committees to report on. Why don't I start with the Finance Committee? We met last week, and the Finance Director gave us the 10-month report, which shows that we're actually going to use less of the fund balances Mr. Nundu was talking about than we had budgeted this year. So we're not doing too bad. The finance director also is in the process of reviewing how we invest the money that we do hold in reserve, and we'll be talking about that in the future. Also, the finance director is looking at the fund that we have for supporting the cemetery. And we may be coming to council to ask for some changes to that. Then moving on, well, any questions? The Comprehensive Plan Committee at the last meeting, we've decided that we're going to try to start writing chapters and revising chapters this summer. And as we do that, we'll try to bring those to the council so that we don't have to look at the whole thing all at one time. We could stand to have a few extra people on the Comprehensive Plan Committee. We've had several people that leave that committee for various personal reasons. The Historic Preservation Committee also has met recently, and there we've started to look at a historic preservation ordinance. There are several towns in Maine that have those, and we're going to, we hope to be able to bring something up like that before council sometime this summer. And finally, the Resilience Committee had its first meeting, and it was mostly a matter of introductions, who's who, and we did some preliminary brainstorming. So we're scheduled to meet again June 5th, and we hope to get the ball rolling on that. As we can see from the events of the last day and a half, it's pretty important that we get some kind of emergency measures in place.
All set, Claude?
Yeah.
Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Councilor Frankie what the plan is for engaging the public regarding the comprehensive plan?
Well, I anticipate that we'll have we'll be bringing it before council. And are you suggesting that we might do those in the form of public hearings?
Well, I think traditionally the public gets the opportunity to participate in discussions about the plan.
Yeah. So yeah. So,
What's the timeline on completing the plan?
oh, well, we have until I think the fall. So that's why we're going to try to get chapters. Some of the chapters, like the natural resources, are not much different today than they were 7 years ago. But then some other chapters like housing, transportation are going to take some serious revisions to them, and I think those we'll definitely want to get public input on those.
Yeah, and of course, with our new city manager coming on board, it would be great to have his stamp on that plan. So
Yeah.
I'm sure he will be involved in that process. Lead us in some community engagement.
Anyone else? All right, moving on to public comments. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was letting him do his thing. I didn't. With the events that happened the last couple of days and us being slightly out of alignment with our meeting, I think we need to have a serious conversation about the events that happened the last 2 weeks in the concourse with the 20 citations to Cancun and the shooting in the concourse outside of that establishment. There are people asking. They may not ask you, but I'm getting questioned. What's going on? What are our actions going to be to send a clear signal this ain't going to be tolerated?
So I think part of it is you have to let the state deal with their portion of it, because we don't control the liquor license. And if they add 20 citations, that's got to work its way through the system. As for everything else,
He's got outdoor dining. He's been given some other stuff from us, not from the state.
Okay. Well, I will say that the outside dining is nowhere near what it was last year. They're not even using the street. They're right there on the sidewalk. There's no tent up. There are issues. And I think the biggest issue is that we have to figure out how we're going to deal with troublesome establishments. And this isn't new to Waterville. You had the same issue when you had the Bobbin. You've had the same issue with other O'Brien's up on the other side of town. We
But
haven't
have
found
to
a
let the-
solution that works.
I understand that, but we at least need to acknowledge that we are, that
We get that, but we also have to look at the facts, and not everything is out. You have people that were hurt in that incident, that were uncooperative. You have people; those people weren't from Waterville; they came here from Massachusetts. That is very hard to put on the owner of an establishment. It happened outside. Are there things that should be addressed at that restaurant? Absolutely, and we should make it harder for other establishments. But we have to figure out a plan that works. Because even if you close that place, another one's going to pop up.
I'm not saying that.
And then we're going to have the same issues that are unresolved.
I'm not saying that. I am saying that we need to let the people at least hear that we're discussing
Oh,
it.
we're definitely discussing it.
You know, I kind of understand what Council McCormick is trying to say. You know, all of this work that we're doing and the community is doing and everyone is doing to try and revitalize downtown Waterville, you know, make it prosperous and flourish. You know, shootings don't exactly attract business. So this is not just about it is about the incident that happened there, but there's other businesses down there that are negatively affected by the actions that took place that evening. So, I mean, it is concerning, and I want to echo that, you know, Council McCormick is correct. We got to figure something out here because, you know, all this work that everyone is doing to try and make downtown Waterville a place people want to bring their families, this type of stuff isn't probably a good look.
So I think part of it requires us to look at the process. I mean, if you look at what goes on, they're not the only bar in the concourse that's had shootings. I mean, another one has had it just a few years ago. I think what we have to figure out is what procedures and policies the city wants to put in place so that things like that don't happen. If you're going to have an establishment that's open after 11 o'clock, that's going to be open till 1 a.m., then maybe there needs to be something in the ordinance that requires them to have actual security, like hired out, not people that you just hire to put out in the front door. Does that require them paying the police department to have somebody standing outside of their establishment? Should we require that from other establishments that are going to be open? Those are the sorts of things that I think that we have to think about going forward so that no matter what happens with this place, we don't fall into the same hole. So the next time somebody wants to open a nightclub, these are the steps and procedures that we require you to do if you want to open in Waterville. Go ahead, Flavia.
Hi. So I had a question. So the last time that they came to renew their license, I think I specifically did mention something about them having extra bouncers there. Was that ever followed through? Like, what was the process of that?
I doubt that they had extra bouncers. I mean, you don't get 20 people coming through your door that aren't of age and you were doing your job. I don't think anyone is fooled by the things were actually happening that needed to happen. But we need to spell them out in an ordinance so that we have something to go back to. I mean, threatening somebody a company by saying, we're going to take your outdoor dining. So what, I can still dine inside and I still have all of that alcohol. I mean, the restaurant portion of the business isn't the issue. It's the lounge nightclub portion of the business that's an issue. How do we address that?
You'll be back
But
for a
we've
new
just-
vehicular license in enough time. Sorry.
I just wanted to say, I mean, we've discussed exactly these issues already with Cancun just over a year ago, and we did approve their license based on the idea that they had rectified these things that don't have to do with shootings. They have to do with, you know, the lawful operation of an establishment with not having underage drinkers and having reasonable, numbers of people. So I think this is an issue for this particular establishment, and I think
agree.
we should address it.
I think you need to address it, but I think as addressing it, we have to have solutions going forward. Like
Then we
can't-
got some work
I don't
to
want
do.
to just talk about it again and do absolutely nothing. Like the city
Well-
has a habit of sometimes talking about things, then there's no actionable stuff that happens afterwards. We just talk about it.
I think it's good, it's been raised tonight, and I think that we should follow through on this and come up with some recommendations.
Agreed. Anyone else? All right, now I can go to public comment. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I think I've come with solutions, recommendations, instead of
those.
just a complaint.
That's why we like when you come.
So I want to talk about our water crisis that we recently had. First of all, I actually want to say thank you to Jay. It sounds to me like you have, as our mayor, been out there, always are helpful to people when there's a crisis. When there was the emergency with the fire, you were out there wanting to make sure that the workers had some compensation. When we had a recent staff person who had illness, I think, again, you were out there wanting to be concerned. And I think in general, as the mayor, that your leadership there, as well as the letter on the website, I don't do Facebook, so I don't know what was on Facebook, but the letter on the website, again, with your acknowledgement where people could come for assistance is really important. What I do, though, I am concerned that I think that our crisis management in this situation was inadequate. So I'm glad that the city was able to successfully address the water crisis. However, I am disturbed that some emergency management interventions were not applied, or if applied, I don't think were in a timely manner that all members of the community were aware of the crisis or what to do. While I was seeking water at one of our grocery stores this morning, it was out of water, and I was told that another town was getting a whole, truckload of water from Poland Springs. Someone there mentioned that our fire department has water. I understand that, but those who had finances were encouraged to, purchase first. And so someone said the fire department was out, but I decided to, personally check that out, which I'm glad that I did. And, I was really pleased with the response of our fire department. I drove down the alley, and the person there who helped me was lovely. Also told me that later on that day that they would have some water results back. And I thought that was important and helpful. However, these are my recommendations. When you provide a notice on a Facebook or a website, you need to not only date it, but you need to time the notice. So yesterday's notice had no time, what time it happened. And I think then that you should then inform people on your notice, when your next notice is going to be, how frequently you're going to provide updates. I think at a minimum in a crisis like this, it should have been documented that we're going to provide updates every hour. In the notice, please don't use small font. I noticed when I read the website, the information, that made it difficult and made it confusing for some of the information that was there. If a particular neighborhood or town is identified as where the problem is, I think you should probably have a little map, not just the street, because so people want to see what that area is. And I know then that this crisis, it broadened apparently from just that street to the whole community and other communities. Apparently the CDC got involved. City government should also ask the online newspaper to post the information, to time date it as well, to collaborate with them. In emergency circumstances, please don't assume that everyone looks at the city website or Facebook or reads the newspaper or listens to a radio. Therefore, I think that the city in this type of emergency should have identify block captains that go door to door letting people know that the water was not safe to drink. I know a lot of people didn't know this. It is likely, I think, that we have plenty of persons in local organizations or businesses and colleges that I think would be, readily be volunteers. I think we should plan ahead if we have a crisis like this, who are our go-to volunteers. I also think that if you do that you should have maps prepared in advance that identify your block districts where the volunteers where they're spending no more than 30 minutes, whatever neighborhood they're going to. I think you also could have had flyers printed up quickly and put on doors if you didn't talk to somebody so people knew. I also think you could have had on various streets signs that said water emergency and where to go to get water. The other is that I think there should have been coordination. I don't know if there was, but at least when I went to the store, I don't think there was coordination with the stores who had water as to what was going on. If a store ran out, did they know for sure that the fire department still had water? Because some people said yes, some people said no. I think that then, this is not about businesses making money in water. And I think our businesses, if they'd been asked, would have all gladly said, I'm out of water, but my understanding is this grocery store has it, this place has it, this place has it. And the information we should have asked to then have been posted outside, because people should not have had to go into a store looking for water and going all over when there was no water there. So I don't think the businesses would have been against this had they been asked by the city to do something like this. I think we have a lovely city that wants to be cooperative, but I'm hopeful that people did not get more hurt. I'm sorry about the person who passed away at the fire at the apartment, and I'm glad that our fire department was there to do the best they could. But this is a type of crisis we as a city government, city council, I think really need to be better prepared for emergency management. I have a copy of about 6 copies. I sent recommendations, not in the best language, but it's been updated, but for anyone who wants a copy of it, I would be glad to give it. It is with a little better language.
That one too.
So
So we're clear, and Councilor Green and we've sat in some of these meetings. I know it's not in place, and we always say it's coming, but we are developing a system that will allow you to sign up so that, and it's all encompassing. If you end up seeing a pothole somewhere, you'll be able to take a picture, upload it to the city so that it gets to the right department, so that we know that there's an issue on a specific street. This system will also allow us, once you sign up, to text or message you. And you're right. I mean, you mentioned the newspaper, the radio, on the city's website. There's so many different places to put information, but a lot of people have that right in their hand. And if we can get people to sign up for that service once it's available, it'll be a lot easier to say, hey, listen, this isn't happening on this week. If you're on this route for trash, guess what? It's not coming till Wednesday. So it gives us an opportunity to be more transparent and give you information in real time, as opposed to having to post it on the city's website, because there's no way, even if we wanted to, we couldn't call every resident.
but this was a fairly global emergency, and so I think a little more formalized response where there is person to person, or at least, street notification,
I agree. We were running around with chickens with our heads cut off, but I mean, we did what we had to do in the moment, and we got water. We procured water. We knew where we were going to get more pallets of water, and there were moments where we ran out, but really for about 10 or 15 minutes while we went to go get more and bring it back to the station.
And that's why I think communicating to the stores to let them know. Again, this is we've got so much modern technology. We've got, you could be online, you've got texting to the stores, and you could have had meetings with them to say who's got what, and please let us know. So everybody knows any place that anybody went in the community, they would have known, because otherwise people can get out of control, and fear can create a lot of havoc in a community. And anyhow, I think people, as I say, the fire department did a lovely job, and I was thankful myself to be able to go home and make a cup of coffee.
Was it good?
Thank you. It was good.
All right. Anyone else from the public?
You have one person online, Mayor. Shall I
Yes,
promote
please.
her? Hi, Nancy. Can you hear us okay?
I can, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just, I agree with everything that Diane said. And I did have memory that there has been talk about the wider notification system. And I just, because Jay, I think you're exactly right. I mean, we've got them many people have the communication tool in our hands. And I just was wondering if there's like a timeline that might be put in place. Do we have any estimate on that?
To be honest with you, I know that it's part of the upcoming year's budget, and it's going to be done with the revamp of the website. So I would imagine that you'd have that by the end of the year. I mean, I can't imagine that by fall, end of the year, that we wouldn't have at least a beta version of it so that we could test out.
Okay.
I mean,
That's great.
seems normal. Right? But yeah, I would assume that sometime before I leave office that you would have that system in place.
Great. Because, I mean, it can be used for, and should be used for everything. Everything.
Listen, if you see a pothole or you see something that doesn't belong or something isn't right, you're going to be able to take a picture of it. It gets to the city will get it to the right department so that things are addressed. And then it keeps a timeline. If we know that there's a pothole on Elm Street, well, it was reported a week ago. Why is it not done? We have actual data that we can fall back on. So.
Yep. Alrighty. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else from the public? All right. Moving on to consent agenda.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Roll call.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Is there a motion to read by title only?
Yes. Second.
May
Roll
I?
call, please.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I think this is the first meeting I've ever been to in all of these years where there wasn't old business. Am I wrong? Anybody else? All right, moving on to new business. Resolution 90, 2023.
Move to adopt.
Second.
This is Resolution 90, 2023, authorize the issuance of a victualer's license to John Picuro, doing business as Gouda Boys. It's already on the floor.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 91, 2023.
Authorize the issuance of a short-term rental license to Jack Augustin, doing business as the Augustins.
All right.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And that's for like an Airbnb? Or
Yes.
something similar? How many of these do we have in the city? Because I know that everybody's not registering.
Correct.
So, like, do we send code enforcement to start scouring Airbnb?
Code is
And-
now starting to reach out to those folks.
Good.
Yes.
All right, make sure. Listen, now's your opportunity. Sign up. Anybody else? Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 92, 2023.
Approve issuance of a second-hand license to Eco ATM LLC.
Move to adopt. Second.
That's the little ATMs that take your phones?
Correct.
All right. Yeah. Where are they putting one in?
I believe it's going into the,
Dollar General.
Dollar General.
Thank you.
Yep.
yeah, in the concourse.
That's exploited. All right.
All set?
Yep.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Move on to Resolution 93, 2023.
Authorize changing the name of the city's main public employees retirement system and amending the plan coverage.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Can you give us some details on that?
Your HR director's here.
That's what I was looking at.
Okay.
So this, is this on? Can you hear me?
Okay.
So this will cover the city manager retirement plan that was authorized in his contract. Because the main employees retirement system goes by categories, they do have to include the assistant city manager position. It is optional for both of them to enroll if they would like to. So this does not affect the police and fire. Only thing that it affects is their name. It changes it from Waterville Fire and Police to the city of Waterville. So.
Okay, I mean,
So it's just affecting 2 employees?
That's correct.
Okay.
potentially.
And what would be the downside if we decided not to do that?
You're not going to get your city manager because that was part of his contract.
Yeah, part of the city manager's contract.
Question, so why is this not for all like everyone that's there? Like, why is, like, Sarah, why is she not able to opt in if she wanted to, since she's in that sort of office?
So it does go by category of employees. So the city has the option to determine which employees are eligible. However, the cost for Main State Retirement is set by them. It's more than what our
Okay,
deferred comp costs the city.
okay. Just checking.
Yep.
All right, anybody else? Patty, can you roll call?
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to Resolution 94, 2023.
Amend the foreign trade zone number 186 to include York County.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Gavin, tell me the benefits of adding York County. Some of us are a little confused. I know I am.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor, members of the community and public, Garvin Dunnigan, Central Maine Growth Council, and the City of Waterville. I put this in the box of our, we're on a July 1 year, just as you are, and I put this in the box of future and strategic planning, kind of work priorities for us as the foreign trade zone. The simple answer is kind of a strategic belief that York County expands our service area, yes, number one. But number two, it really connects a gap between kind of a logistics highway, i.e. Boston, getting goods to Logan Airport, for example, and it kind of captures that area. Hopefully not to muddle this issue and not a great functional comparison, but I'd equate it to having a TIF district in place where a business can go in and take advantage of that program versus not having the TIF district in place, which is still all right, but you got to take the time and energy to create a new district, the paperwork, and the cost to the businesses go up. I would note Waterville has the only active foreign trade zone in the state of Maine, and as would have it, our foreign trade zone users are in York County. The thumbnail sketch on the program, it's a very old program, the Foreign Trade Zone. It's not as well utilized in the state of Maine, but comes out of Smoot-Hawley Terrier Tract, going back to the Great Depression. And at that time, Congress put this law into place to make U.S.-based companies and U.S.-based manufacturers more competitive than their foreign alternatives. The thesis remains today on the reason for the program. So essentially, it creates the opportunities where we can cultivate the conditions to grow the program, number one. Number two, it is absolutely in the leadership box of showing Waterville's statewide leadership in imports, exports, international trade, foreign direct investment. When there's dialogues or businesses of state significance that are doing imports, exports foreign direct investment, international trade. This really helps us make sure we are at the table on those dialogues, and that's where we want to be. Waterville has always had a history of trade and strong geographical economics, historically to today. If you look at our inland port, our multimodal facility, in many ways, that's the way Poland Springs water gets all around the world through our intermodal facility. So number one, it is in a kind of future planning box. We believe that we can kind of capture York County, put it in our service area, and then number three, a leadership perspective for the city.
Thank you.
I would also note, there's no fiscal note attached to this in terms of cost. We're hoping that you support the resolution. That will go into an application to the U.S. Department of Commerce, into the Foreign Trade Zones Board, which is a small office in Commerce. We have right-sized the program and sustainably manage it now, where it's not a loss leader. We do have some nominal fees that come in from foreign trade zone users. The program is considered infrastructure or a public utility, and it's managed as such. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody else? Councilor Frankie?
What's the impact on the free trade zone on Waterville? Does it raise property taxes? Does it provide employment, or is it just a benefit to York County?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilor. No, it won't. Again, no fiscal note. It won't touch property taxes. And no revenues going into other counties such as York. It will allow us to continue to collect fees from existing foreign trade zone users or future foreign trade zone users, which we then manage and use to either market, promote the program, or the community. So it comes back to us.
Thank you.
If that answers your question.
Does what come back go into the Growth Council?
Correct. All our fees and scheduling from a governance standpoint, because it is managed like a public utility, is posted and publicly available, and we have to stick to that.
Go ahead.
So could you give an example, because York County does seem very far away from Central Maine,
Yeah.
Of why it would be important to have that element in this particular foreign trade zone?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you maybe look at an existing foreign trade zone user of foreign trade zone 186, tend to see a lot of businesses that do international trade in the southern area of Maine, closer to large airports. Maine has limited air freight cargo, for example. So if we were to make big things, or even say furniture, we're likely, unfortunately, not going to ship that around the world or fly it around the world from Maine, unfortunately. That's a separate dialogue. It's probably going to fly out of Logan Airport. So when you see, you do see a lot of businesses that deal with imports, exports in southern Maine because of that, straddling the New Hampshire border, just over the bridge, and closer to large airports, regional hubs. The geographic economics essentially are good in York County, just like they are in this area, and thus you see the location of some imports, exports, manufacturing type businesses.
So it's not necessarily going to bring business. It's not going to bring business to this area.
It doesn't preclude us from bringing business.
Okay.
We could have a user in Kennebec County, and they have an office in York County. That could be an example of where there's zone-to-zone transfers. It does not preclude us from doing anything. I would equate it to thinking, we are thinking about regionalism here from an economic development standpoint. It'd be the equivalent of growing that TIF district to be quite large to capture future activity.
Okay.
College ad's still going to be.
What's that?
College ad's still going to be
College Ave is still in it. Yes.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Thank you, Garth.
Thank you.
Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to 95, 2023.
Amend the zoning ordinance veterinary clinics.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? I look forward to a new vet clinic.
Is this one that we tabled?
No, we sent it to the planning board.
Sent it
It's
to
the
the
one
planning
they're
board.
going to be setting up by
What used to be the old
Firehouse.
Sweet Frog
I know
spot.
we
Yep.
talked about it before, but this is
Yep.
when it's come back to us.
It's come
Yep.
back to us.
Yes.
And you
and
know
what
what we
did-
need? Another vet clinic. 'cause we
What
do.
was the planning board's conclusion?
The vote was 5-0 to recommend you adopt the change. Dr. Townsend's here if you want to ask him any questions.
It's a weird one because like even downtown it wouldn't have been technically allowed, even though you have doctors' offices and dentists' offices. Heck, we got Loyal Biscuit right there on Main Street, so it makes sense to have. I mean, people are gonna go shop. They're gonna drop off their dogs, go do something else. Love that it's gonna be there. You want to say something? You free plug right now. Come get it. Come get it.
Matthew Townsend, veterinarian, and member of this greater community for over 25 years. I think there is definitely a need for practice in this area. The next thing is that the face of veterinary medicine has changed over the 28 years that I've been in practice, and so that you have veterinary practices in storefronts where people are. And I think this zoning change, which I really want to thank the mayor and the council to move on to the planning board initially, and then for the planning board to ask those questions and to send back, really understand that. And I think this will be definitely positive for the community at large. So,
Are you taking new patients?
I will be.
Okay. I'll be calling. Now, if you could just do sugar gliders. Done deal. All right. Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Done deal. Moving on to Resolution 96, 2023.
It's actually ordinance 96.
Yep.
Amend the zoning ordinance parking.
Move to adopt.
Second.
What is this?
They're redoing the parking over there where they want to take out the bobbin and everything. They're going to make it
That's right.
slightly smaller, and I'm not going in there with my truck.
I mean, it's a Dodge. I wouldn't
So-
go anywhere with that thing.
Hey, that's okay. You walk all you want.
So can we just have a summary of what this ordinance will do?
Yes, there are two parts to it. The first one is it will decrease the required length of a parking space from 18.5 feet to 18 feet. And 18 feet is actually pretty standard. A lot of towns use 18 feet. The other part of it is a decrease in the setback requirement for parking spaces. And this would only apply in the commercial zone where the parking lot abuts commercial use. And so this was requested by the organization developing the Head of Falls Village, and I believe Todd Alexandra is online there to
Yes.
answer your questions.
And Adrian Fine.
And Adrian Fine is his engineer.
Who should I promote
Why
them
don't you
both?
bring up Todd?
Todd? Okay, so they've both got their hands raised, so I will promote them both.
All right.
Hi, Adrian, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm also promoting Todd Alexander. There. Todd, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I think the
Great.
council has some questions for you.
All right, do you have specific questions or did you want us to provide any presentation?
You have a brief presentation?
Well, I think the main thing we're interested in is the setbacks for parking in front of the stores. How does that work?
Let me share my screen, which I believe I can do. Yep. So I can just show you this figure we've put together for the specific request. So this is the proposed Head of Falls Village project. Front Street is up here, Appleton Street and Temple Street, just kind of one block off of Main Street. And this is just to show how this zoning amendment would affect this project. And so the request for the 18 feet instead of 18 and a half feet is going to allow us to have more parking on this project, which we know is a concern we've heard from multiple parties and also something that we would like to provide. And then the setback, we were specifically looking at this area at the rear of the site where we have parking and it actually abuts a parking lot, and reducing that setback from this rear property line in the commercial A zone abutting a commercial use allows us to have, again, deeper parking spaces. And essentially we have 91 spaces on the site with these two amendments. And if we cannot have these changes, then the depth of the parking in these areas shaded in red would be reduced to 14 feet, which is not a practical space or an allowable space per ordinance. So we would actually end up losing 21 spaces on this site as an example of how these changes would help to provide more parking for the project. We're happy to answer questions.
Yeah, and if the only thing I would add, that was a good summary from Adrian, how this particularly impacts our project. I would say that, the overarching issue is that we, two kind of main themes in terms of some of the feedback that we've got from stakeholders thus far. Certainly parking, very, very important for everyone. It's also important for us. And then two, also just sort of egress and circulation from everything, just for the visitors and the residents at the site, but also for life safety. So this just really helps us pick up a little bit of room that gives us sort of the circulation and the parking that really fits well for the project. I would highlight that the two things that we're proposing are actually really very common in other urban settings in Maine in terms of zoning requirements. So the 18-foot stall is, I think at the planning board presentation, our other civil engineer, Mike, cited that, Lewiston, Auburn, Bangor, South Portland, 18 feet is the standard, not 18 feet 6. And then the 5-foot setback for parking within a commercial district is actually quite generous as compared to what you might see in the urban district. I would note in the commercial A zone, you're allowed to build a building to the property line with 0 setback. So this just addresses the parking setback, which currently requires 5 feet, and we're suggesting to reduce that to 2 feet. So it's actually less restrictive than what the zoning act ordinance currently says in terms of building buildings. And with that, maybe we'll let you ask any questions if you have any.
Anybody? Anybody from the public? All right, Patty, can you get a roll call?
Council Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to Resolution 97, 2023.
Just one moment. Resolution 97, 2023, refer to the Planning Board zoning map amendment 15 Washington Street to Commercial A.
What is 15 Washington Street?
Move to adopt.
Second.
What building is that?
I think it's an empty lot at the moment. Off Washington.
Mr. Jobber is here to answer your questions.
All right. Come on up.
Good evening. How can I help?
What's on the site now? Is it empty?
Nothing.
What are you planning to put up there?
Housing. A little bit of condominium complex. We've researched many things to put on there. We're gonna car wash, we almost moved them up there to warehouse space. But a lot of people have approached me to demand for housing in Waterville is bad.
Yeah, it is.
Kobe people have, and so I do a lot of development. I was born and raised here. I'm a Waterville person my whole life, but I do a lot of work down Portland now and do a lot of development down there. So just gonna kind of bring it home and hopefully build something up here.
We need the housing.
Is that little section that's just down the street from Super Shoe?
I didn't quite hear him.
Is that little section down by Super Shoe?
Yeah, it's right next to AAA.
Yeah.
It goes, yeah, Super Shoe, the bank, AAA, and then this lot. It's about 3.5 acres.
So how many units are you thinking of, and what type
We haven't
of
done all
housing?
the work yet. I mean, it could be, a building is probably going to have 24 units in it. It has the ability to have 4 buildings. Boyd Snowden did a lot of the work preliminary on this site. So we'll be working with Boyd on that, and Bob Knowlton's helping out. And we'll just bring engineering in to, we get the design and do all those things.
What's your maximum potential?
96.
So commercial, you're requesting commercial A because that's the only zone that would allow for that many, or what's the reason?
That zone allows apartments, whereas commercial C does not allow housing.
Right.
But commercial C1 does.
C1.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's I don't know that there's an advantage to that.
But we can't just be zoned for like residential to do all
Well,
that?
I mean, that was initially my question. Why not a residential zone? But
I just came and asked what would be the most beneficial for that property that maximizes the density of the housing that we can put on that property.
Right, there are no density requirements in the commercial A zone.
Okay, so we can fit as, makes sense. Okay. That was good. Any other questions? I like that you have a potential of 96 units. Thank you. Patty, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay, moving on to Resolution 98, 2023.
Refer to the Planning Board zoning amendment LD 2003.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Info on that? That's the, Ann,
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
can you give us just an overall picture of LD 2003?
There's a lot to it. I guess the memo I gave you described the changes section by section to the zoning ordinance, but just to tell you in general what this is all about, the state passed a law which is commonly called LD 2003, and that requires the city to allow accessory dwelling units, and the lingo is ADU. If I say ADU, I mean accessory dwelling unit. You have to allow accessory dwelling units in every zone in the city that allows housing, and you cannot require any land area for those. In other words, it's like the commercial A zone. There's no density requirement. You cannot require any parking for those. You can enforce your setback requirement and your maximum lot coverage that the principal building is subject to. Another part of it is that we have to allow density bonus for affordable housing projects, and the language in the draft that you have uses language right from the state law that describes what affordable housing means. And let's see. If you have an accessory structure already in your building, that would be something like a garage shed, you're allowed to convert that to an apartment as long as it meets the setback requirement for an accessory structure. It doesn't have to meet the setback requirement for a principal structure.
So if they've got a garage already, they can't build one?
If you have a garage already, the state law is allowing you to use it as a residence.
And you said no.
We're about to increase housing here.
Well, Jay, you
Everybody's
have
not
to,
bothered
you have to make
about
it
getting
habitable.
Yeah, but what I mean is that, like, if I have the driveway, like I have the driveway and I have the garage, you're counting that as an accessory dwelling. But what if I don't want to use that? What if I want to put an additional building up on the property? Like, I don't want to use the garage. I want to put up a third building.
What this is talking about, an existing structure that's detached from your house. Well, actually, an accessory dwelling unit can be inside the house, so it could be if your garage is attached, you could convert that to a unit. It can be added on to your existing dwelling unit, or it can be a separate building. But this is another idea, is you can also take an existing garage and convert that to a dwelling unit. So if you have a single-family home already, you can add a garage. I'm not quite sure what it is what you're proposing.
So that makes sense. I was questioning, and you say any zone that housing is allowed. So does that mean somebody who owns a duplex can throw up an auxiliary unit on their property?
No, this is for a single-family home only.
Making sure. Go ahead.
It sounds like you're saying you can use your garage to turn it into an in-law apartment or something like that.
Yeah.
You can, but what I was saying, the only thing I was trying to get at is, I don't want to convert the garage. I want to put up, I want to have another accessory dwelling. Am I precluded because I have the garage? I just wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to, somebody's going to be able to add that extra unit. Because if you go to some of these neighborhoods that are all single families, some of them have property where they can throw, we always said they were housing for, like, if you wanted your mother-in-law to come live at your house. Well, now you can build one. She doesn't have to stay in the house. She can have her own space.
My concern with this was it doesn't address parking as part of it. So you can put the structure up, but expect whoever's using it to park out on the street.
Or
you're not going to have the parking. No, this is another creature that haunts my ward. Is we have all the housing, we don't have the parking. So everybody's on the street, or they're a nightmare that happens every winter during snow season. So there's something that concerned me is if you're going to put up a structure, you're going to have adequate, appropriate off-street parking for that individual.
Well, the state's told us that we can't.
The state's saying otherwise.
Well, I would say that if you have room to put an accessory dwelling on your property, maybe it's time to put in a driveway.
It would be nice.
Anyway,
Jay.
it's going to, go ahead, sir.
I'm Jacob Varnwhite. Just because you don't just because the ordinance doesn't mandate parking doesn't mean you're not allowed to put up parking if you want more. All it's saying is that you don't have to force people to build parking if the market and the area means that they don't actually need it. It's not saying that you can't have parking. You absolutely can. It's just saying that you don't have to put up any more if you don't want any more or you don't need it.
Just the same, I'm looking at, I can't remember the name of this, Autumn Street. Guy's parking a semi on Autumn Street. He has nowhere else to put it, so everybody's trying to get around that tractor. We've got, I understand the desire to increase housing for the area, but we've got to look at, if somebody comes in, they're probably coming with a vehicle, they're going to need a place to put that vehicle. And before you step back up and say otherwise, that's going to be part of my mantra, one comes with the other. Because somebody will, they can take my property. They can take my property.
Hold on, sir, you gotta let him finish speaking first.
You can take my property right now and put 4 structures on it and not sweat anybody being able to park in there.
Well, you have plenty of parking on your property.
Well, that could be but that I think is going forward is something that we need to look at as part of the housing issue is the parking issue that goes with it.
I agree.
Looking at the parking issue is a good thing, yes. We need to reduce the amount of parking we have off street, not increase it. Because if we have half the city paved in parking, we're going to end up with another KMD, another concourse, another Head of Falls area, where the entire city is going to be paved in parking, and you can't put up any housing there. You can't put up any businesses there. You need to address reducing parking, adding mixed use, in order to allow people to get around without having to drive and without having to park. That's zoning code.
The good thing is we're gonna send this to the planning
Yeah.
board and they're gonna work it out.
Let's send it to the planning board.
Good deal.
In the meantime, you need to come and take a walk with me in my neighborhood because you're way off kilter.
Claude.
Just a quick question. Has the city attorney reviewed this proposal?
Yeah, yes, he has.
Okay. And he is in agreement that this allows the city to be in compliance with the state law?
Yes, there are a few issues here where you do have a choice. So, for example, we are allowed to choose how we want to regulate short-term residential rentals, and I chose language which the planning board or the council may not appreciate. It was just a fill in the blank sort of thing. Another choice you have is the maximum size for an accessory dwelling unit, and I arbitrarily chose 500 square feet.
Ooh, that's little. That's like
But the rest of it is all mandated.
That's like tiny home size.
Efficiency, yeah.
Someday I hope to put my mother-in-law in one of those, and I want her to be able to get around. There's not a lot of room.
That's not a maximum.
Yes.
Yeah, she said that's a maximum.
Well, that's a maximum.
Yeah, I
The
think
minimum is 190 square feet.
That's great.
That's tiny.
I mean, give me a container home. Some of those are pretty, but 500 square feet just seems small.
Well, just one other thing, I would point out that this is a state mandate. We have to comply with this, and I think we should acknowledge the work that the planning director has done on this. The final rules came out in April. That's only about a month away from it being brought before council. Thank you.
Done deal. All right. Patty, can you roll call?
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito? That was a,
Yes.
thank you. Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Last one tonight. Resolution 99, 2023.
Approve an alternate crosswalk be painted on Appleton Street.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Anybody else? Before I start? All right, so the crosswalk is on Appleton going from the corner to the other corner where the library is. And I'll be honest, I know it says alternate crosswalk. We're putting up a pride crosswalk. I mean, it's literally rainbow. It stands for lots of different things, but that's specifically why we're putting it up. We used to have the banner that went across Main Street, and we don't have that. And we always talk about Pride being 1 month. And really, it's something that we should celebrate every year, all year long. And it was funny because I had a conversation with Councilor Green earlier, and we were saying how the language looked ambiguous. And it's 2023. I really think that it should have been. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're part of the LGBT community. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, green. It should be ambiguous. I mean, it's 2020. At this point in our lives, we shouldn't be having these sorts of weird discussions where we have to sort of toe the line to make something like this happen. It makes no sense. Unity, I'm hopeful that they're going to do it soon too, and we're going to go up and paint theirs. Well, I'm going to go up and paint theirs in beginning of June. June 1st, I think it is, for Unity. I have to make sure. But this is Waterville. It's time that we sort of come up. It's going to look great on that part of town. It's going to look fantastic walking up to the library. And I hope that the rest of you support it, because I put it on there because I wanted to get it on. Anyone else? Public? Ethan. Patty, can I have a roll call?
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor
Great idea.
Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
And next week, Councilor Morris and Councilor Klepak and I are going to be out there helping to paint it. So if anybody wants to join us, that'll be the day. What are we doing on Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday seems to be the day.
Tuesday.
So I will get
Next Tuesday
time.
seems to be the day that we're going to paint that.
I'll just confirm with Matt.
I wish I had a time for you. Somebody just tells me to show up and I go there. That's usually how it works. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? Patty? Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Let's go home.